Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. So, hopefully, you all can hear me and see me. This is my first webcast, so I hope it's coming through good. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Michael Phoenixhart. I am a shaman and a psychic medium. This is what I do professionally. I'm also an author and an educator, and spent my whole life working with the occult and the esoteric, the mysteries and sciences of the spirit and the soul. I spent my whole life studying these things, traveling around the world, meeting with different teachers, different sects of religion. And I've been doing this my whole life, and spending a lot of my time absorbing knowledges, exploring landscapes, and different ideas, ideals, cultures, and techniques of spirituality. And so today, I'm going to talk a little bit about meditation, about the different forms, and of the science of meditation, and how that actually can lead to an evolution of the soul. And I'm going to talk about a lot of other things that correspond with that, but mainly the focus of this will also be talking about alchemy. So first off, I want to talk about the title of this video. It's called The Yoke of Meditation and the Alchemy of the Soul. Now, yoke is actually the word yoga in Hinduism. The word yoga means yoke, or to unite, or to be absorbed into one. This can also be called gnosis, and some other esoteric traditions. Now, when we talk about yoga, a lot of people these days instantly think about, the asanas, the postures, and the things like that. That is a very, very small part of yoga. Yoga is actually a very vast source and resource of tools to procure different experiences of the soul and the spirit. So what we see today in the Western world as yoga, which is usually some light meditation, and some postures and asanas, that's not really it at all. Yoga is actually the art of removing yourself from the mundane world and being absorbed into the divine, being one with the divine. And here you have your first and full experience of yourself being part of the divine. The word gnosis means direct experience. You gain knowledge through the direct experience of something. You're absorbed into it. You're into the yolk. You are in the center, the yolk of the egg. You're absorbed into it. And so you there have a direct experience, which procures your wisdom. It doesn't matter what you know about it beforehand. Only until you have the full experience does any wisdom come forward. So if you studied your whole life about yoga and then started to do yoga, but then all the postures and everything else aren't bringing enlightenment, but from studying that yoga is becoming enlightened at some point, and you haven't experienced that, then it doesn't matter how much you know. It doesn't matter what you rationally can understand or conceptualize. Until you actually have the experience, you know nothing. And we can argue philosophically on all kinds of subjects this way. But when a person has experienced something, they know the truth of it. It is a truth that they've experienced. And we could talk about perception and we could break it down really deep, but for this webinar, we're just going to agree that you gain full wisdom when you know something rationally or tangibly, and also have a tangible experience of something. Therefore, you have a full, well-rounded, holistic experience and knowledge of something. So, like I said, yoga is the union or the absorption into something. Same as gnosis, becoming one with something. And in the metaphysical and spiritual New Age movements, there is a lot of vast subjects in books on evolution. And there's a lot of things out there to get wrapped up in. a lot of great things, but some of it borderlines on on fantasy and on the phantasmal. And what we're really looking for is, at least myself growing up and other people that I've met along the way, is we're looking for a practical way to give ourselves a chance to experience evolution, to start to climb the ladder ourselves. And you can read hundreds of thousands of books about the light that's emanating from the blue ray of the ascended masters. And you can imagine those beings talking to you and imagine those experiences happening, and even have some vivid experiential hallucinations. But are you really becoming evolved through that kind of meditation? And so the next thing I'll talk about is like meditation in general. Meditation, the etymology of the word means to think or deeply contemplate on something. And so when we think about meditating and walking through a forest and meeting a fairy, that's not by the definition of the word meditation. Meditation actually, by the word, is defined as deeply thinking about a concept, an idea, or something like that. And so this is what we would call dialectic. Thinking about things like, who am I? What am I? What is the universe? What is God? What is the nature of the mind? These are contemplative things. This is what meditation is defined as, at least by our dictionary. We also have lots of other very valuable kinds of meditation, like transcendental meditation. What other meditations do we have? Vipassana meditation, to try to see things as they really are. That's what Buddha did, as he tried to come to vast understandings of what things actually are in this reality, in this life. We have transcendental meditations, we have silent meditation, we have walking meditations, we have guided meditations. And what we're going to talk about today is a specific kind of meditation, an alchemical meditation. Now, the alchemical meditation is a biophysical meditation where its function is to stimulate things within the body, within the energies of the body, so that those things will move, become refined, and become pure, and therefore become lighter and become enlightened. So there I have described the whole process of what an alchemical meditation is. And so if you are practicing these other meditations and they are very useful to you, I think they're great. I think you should continue your meditational journey. But the stuff that I'm talking about today are very scientific and very fact-finding ways to experience enlightenment. And it comes down to refining the self through specific techniques and through specific practices and engagements that will change not only the way your mind works and thinks, but also change the biophysical energies in the body. Now, your body has cells. And in those cells, your cells have organs. Your body has organs, your cells have organs. And whatever you eat inevitably becomes part of your body. Same thing with what you breathe. Um, so it goes without saying that we can at some point take something in, and the body naturally will turn it into ourselves. And so our environment, the things we breathe, the things we eat, the things we are engaged in, all of these things have an effect on the cells, on the organs of the cells, on the body, and on the organs of the bodies. Everything you do is affecting you and your physiology. And there's lots of other things that people don't really know about the body. Sometimes we read about them. Sometimes science puts out a paper about how spirituality and science are fusing together. But the ancient rishis of India and Tibet, the ancient shamans, and a lot of ancient cultures, we already knew about these things long, long time ago. And we were actively engaging in these things. And so where we imagine tribes millions of years ago wearing loincloths and just beating animals over the head, a lot of the times that's really not the case. Is some of these civilizations now are being seen as having vast ways of meditating, vast ways of altering their consciousness and reaching states of evolution to the point where they could know things that you wouldn't be able to know with just the developmental period that we are labeling them as. So, what is alchemy? Alchemy has long been seen as some kind of metaphysical magic, some old medieval magic where people are mixing potions and finding the philosopher's stone, turning lead into gold. And although some of these things actually are real, most of the things that are talked about are philosophical in nature and talk about the spirit. Now, there's practical alchemy, where you can, by having a lab, turn different substances into very powerful elixirs, tinctures, and medicines that actually heal the body and have a huge effect on the body. There's alchemical herbalists and scientists. And then there's the alchemists of the soul, those that know how to do the same kind of processes to engage the soul in transmutation. Now, when we think about the old stories of alchemy where we're changing lead into gold, we're changing denseness, dense, heavy, unshiny thing, lead, into something pure, refined, beautiful, worth value, glowing. So we're taking something that's really heavy and mundane into something that's beautiful and illustrious. And there it is, the metaphor of alchemy, to transmute something dense and gross into something beautiful and light. So the process of alchemy is a vast subject. There's a lot to it. Whether it's practical alchemy or meditational alchemy. But that's what we really want to engage in, because it is a science. It's a science in real life and practicality. We can use it to create substances, tinctures and herbal elixirs and things like that. Through different processes, we can separate things, take out dense things, and have just pure substances remaining. This is largely what we do as alchemists. And so when we do meditations, alchemical meditations, we're doing the same thing. We're removing and pulling away a lot of these dense pieces of ourselves, of our body, of our mind, of our emotions, of our soul. And we're separating these things, and we're trying to just pull away the pure essences, the purest forms of it, and shed all the things that are not that pure, refined portion. Because that pure, refined portion is really what we're trying to get to. It's what we are. at our core essence. It makes us up. It's part of us, but it's surrounded by all these other things. Meditation itself is said to, just by the art of meditation and the act of meditation, one is actually cleansing karmas, making one's life better, bestowing better concentration, better health in the body. And all these things are, true. But when we use alchemical meditations, we're pulling away those things that actually are bogging us down, are making our mind heavy, are creating imbalances in the body. And we're changing our composition to be that more refined, lighter gold state. So we have to, at some point here, discuss the soul and come to an agreement on the soul. There's a lot of different subjects on the soul. What is the soul? How is the soul? I don't assume to know what religion or faith or ideals you hold, but I will present the ones that I know to be true and the ones that I've trained and studied in. So your soul is the thing that you are right now. It is your mind, it is your emotions, and it is your body. Those are the three levels of the soul. The soul is the thing that's active in the world. And a lot of people say, oh, my spirit is here and my spirit is there, and my soul is here, my soul is there. Those are two different things. Your soul is the thing that incarnates, experiences, is here. It is the vehicle which you perceive this reality through. And then your spirit is that thing that's unborn, undying, unchanging. It's eternal. It always has been and always will be in the place that it is now. Whether you think that's in heaven or in some other eternal realm, or just the vastness and void of the unknown thing that we call God, as the Buddhists believe, just the void, oblivion, unknowing. So that is the difference between the soul and the spirit. Your spirit is eternal and resides there forever, and your soul will go back to meet it and become one once again. But you are here right now, and your mind, your emotions, and your body are your soul. The soul is vast in itself. It has a power to it. And without its power, it's flat and it's warped and it's disturbed. The soul, you see, is corruptible by this world of experience. So that's what we mean when we say we sell our soul. If we sold our soul, but we believe in our spirit, then it really doesn't matter, because inevitably our spirit is whole. But our soul is the thing that we are selling by engaging in practices and in things in life that actually degrade it. So what does that mean? That means that you have an emotional body. By engaging in a lot of emotional conflict and a lot of emotional strife, you're damaging and corrupting your emotional body. By engaging in a lot of strife and a lot of conflict and filling your mind up with, shows on murder and blood and death and gore. That's what you fill your mind with. So your mind is being, corrupted by those things. And by feeding your body all these bad chemicals and harmful foods and things like that, you're destroying your body. And as those are the three parts of your soul, you're actually destroying your soul every day. And one of my teachers says that the old Taoist belief is you're either creating life or creating death. So you're either creating life in your soul every day and cultivating life, or you're actually cultivating death every day in your soul. And it's a fine line to balance these things. You can't just become pure overnight. It takes work. It takes a lot of focus and a lot of hard work to purify one's state of being. But if you can become aware of your choices and activities, then you have a better chance of remaining some kind of purity, some kind of shape and strength to your soul. So here we agree that the spirit resides in the everlasting kingdom, and your soul is actually the thing that's here experiencing life. It is the shield, if you will, that surrounds you, that comes from the inside and surrounds you, and gets to feel all the bullets, gets to feel all the pins and needles, gets to feel all the love and the rain and everything else. So when we talk about evolution, or we read about it, or we hear about it in the New Age metaphysical spiritual movements, we are talking about evolution in the sense of we are evolving our soul. Now, the soul evolves naturally throughout its life. It is kind of in already a motion where it's going to evolve through its life naturally. But that means a lot of hardships and experiences and pitfalls and traps and delusions and ignorances and all these things that are just what most people experience as normal. And this is the life of samsara, according to the Vedic teachings, the Tibetan teachings. We go through this wheel, this cycle of suffering and pleasure and suffering and pleasure, suffering and pleasure, until one day we're liberated from it, either through death or through enlightenment. Now, enlighten means to become light. To either, it could be taken as becoming light, like not heavy, or light as in like the purity of light. And so if we just remain on that thought as we move forward and talk about the alchemical processes of meditation, we have a good understanding of what we're trying to reach when we talk about enlightenment. We want to be absorbed into that yoke. We want to be absorbed into enlightenment. We want to experience the feeling of being light. Now, a lot of people have all kinds of different experiences in meditation. Some of us have very good clairvoyancy in our mind, and we can see things and things are happening and there's experiences. The Buddhists teach to push away those things and just remain still until there's nothing. And then once you get to nothing, you have to stay still even longer. So there's different attainments that you can kind of measure as you start to try to do alchemical meditations or spiritual things, spirituality in general. You can measure by attainments. There are markers that show you where you are on your path. And now I'll quote Proverbs, because when it comes to spiritual things, because it's such a non-scientifically looked at process for the general public, I should say, because the spiritual traditions of Tibetan Buddhism, Hermeticism, shamanism, and other cultures of the like have very specific techniques, very specific attainments, very specific markers. They know the science of the processes. But in large, for the Western mind, we can perceive our own enlightenment at any time through any of the vast things we think we're experiencing or the phenomena which is coming our way. Because once you meditate, there are things that open up, there are experiences that happen, but they're of the phenomenal nature. They're not of the evolutionary nature. And we like to put our own label on what that experience was. So I'll quote Proverbs when it says, only a fool trusts his own understanding. It's a very good proverb. It's a very good thing to think about, because most of us are self-made people. We have lived independent lives. We maybe left home when we were young. We have our own business. We do our own thing. We're very independent. And if so, then really, if you're an independent person, you seek no validation from anybody. You know what you're doing. You live the life. You know what's happening all the time. But this can't be true, because if you really did know, if you really were that independent and you really did know these things and didn't seek any validation, you wouldn't have a Facebook, probably wouldn't have many friends. You wouldn't really need any of those things, and you'd be a very, very enlightened person. But the fact is that most of us don't know. Most of us are ignorant to the fact that we don't even know anything. And we need this feeling of importance in our lives. We need to feel like we've attained something. We need to feel like we are somewhere, because life doesn't give us any validation anymore. We have no ceremony to show us when we've come of age. We have no ceremony to show us when we're an adult. We have no ceremony to show us when we have reached our elder status. We don't have any markers in our normal processes in this life anymore. American culture, we've just kind of taken all the cultures we like and the pieces we like from them and dissolved all the other things we don't like, namely God, from all of those things. Because your God, I don't like the way that your God is, so I'll just take the things I like from him and then call that also my God. So we've dissolved a lot of things from tradition. We don't have a lot of ceremony. We don't have a lot of validation telling us where we are in this world. So we seek validation through many different things. And we do that a lot through groups, through culturally getting together in a group that we like or we identify with or we want things from. And then we start using the jargon and the terminology and the buzzwords to show that we're hip, that we know what's happening, or we definitely are aware of these things. But in truth, we don't even know if those people know. There's no test. There's no litmus paper. There's no test to know who knows what anymore. So the metaphysical world, the spiritual world, the phenomenal world is full of things. And we don't know how to test them to see if they're actual truth, actual experiences. And most of us don't look to ask other people about these things either. So we go about saying things like, oh, I talked to Spirit and Spirit spoke to me, and I know these things, and I talk to God every day. And not to say that those things aren't happening, but again, have you stopped and asked yourself, do I really talk to this deity? Am I really receiving messages from Spirit? Because I'm sure that somewhere within us is a giant kernel of doubt. A giant one, not a small one, a giant kernel of doubt. Rather, spiritual things are really happening to us. Rather, we really even understand what it is is happening to us. So, how do we know what's happening? Well, we have to experience it. And we can't really trust our own understanding. We have to have peers. This is how we learn to grow. We ask our parents things, and they tell us through their own experiences about how our experiences relate. So we talk about things in relation. And we always want to relate to people that are smarter than ourselves so that we can become smarter. We want to relate to people who have done the same things that we are embarking on, but have done it for longer and had success with those things. If we wanted to become a doctor, we wouldn't go find a young doctor fresh out of school who didn't have any experience and didn't really know anything, and then start asking them questions about the things we're experiencing. No, we're going to look for a much more seasoned, much more well-rounded, much more understanding and experienced person in those fields. So the same thing I suggest for all people to do when they are working through the spiritual world, through the spiritual journeys. Find people, like real people. Find your peers. Find the people that are older than you, more experienced than you, and then become their friend. Sit near their fire. Hear their wisdom. Let them talk. Understand what they're talking about. And then, if those persons are the kind of people that you want to be like or learn things from, or you understand that they have knowledges and experiences beyond your years, then sit with them and tell them that you want to learn from them. Ask them questions about the things that you think you know. And don't be afraid when they tell you things like, no, that's not right. Or, well, maybe that's not completely correct. Or they challenge your views. Because the alchemical process is all about continuously moving through phases of refinement. Right when you think you get to a stage where you're pure and refined, you realize that's only the lowest stage of refinement, that there's thousands of other stages above that. So it's a continuous process of work. And you need teachers and mentors and peers that are actually well versed in the areas. You know, have they written a lot of books? Do they teach? Do they have a lot of practice? Are they just a hermit? You know, you have to consider all these things. I don't claim to know everything. And I've had a long, long life. No, not a long, long life. I've had a good life of experiencing a lot of spiritual things, people, and places that most people will never experience in one lifetime. But I started doing that very early. And I chose to spend that portion of my life where most people go to college. I was learning those things, hitchhiking around the country, experiencing, sitting by people's fires, taking on courses, saving up money, spending all my money on researching or taking trainings and other things like that. So a lot of people won't get that opportunity. So you really have to find the people that are knowledgeable in the fields that you want to be knowledgeable in. Form good circles. And be careful that you're not just validating your own fantasies by surrounding yourself with people that are also having the same fantasies. Ignorance is a very tricky thing. And the first thing is we have to realize is that we don't know. And we have to cling to that understanding. We don't know. Even when we have like a very profound experience and we're pretty sure what that is, we still don't know. And we have to understand that we don't know. So how do we get to the point where we know? Well, we have to have some kind of logical understanding of things, like through study, through doing actual research and work, scientific, mathematic, practicality, rationalism, philosophy. And then we also have to have the experiential portion. So you have to have those two things together. And when you do alchemical meditations, you're usually going to receive a specific technique from a teacher who has been passed down from teacher to student for, who knows, millennium. And so that technique is tried and true. It's led thousands, hundreds, maybe millions of people to an enlightened state of consciousness, and it's done it every time they've done the work. And along with that comes the philosophy or the pith teachings, the heart teachings, the actual verbal doctrine on the subject that you're going to be experiencing. So there's ways to find these things. Tibetan Buddhism has a lot of it. The Vedic scriptures have a lot of it. But the thing is again, we kind of take what we want from other cultures in America and we water them down. We strip away their culture and we strip away all the real divinity within it. Because we want it our way. We want, just like our McDonald's food, we want it fast. We want it our way, and don't mess with it. We don't want any extra things we never asked for. Don't put pickles on it because that will enrage me. So it's very hard to navigate these waters of alchemical meditation. It's completely different than most of the things you've ever done before when meditating, but at the same time, it's very similar to a lot of the things you've already done if you're a meditator. There's visualization, which is a great thing. There's also the feelings that you have to manifest. You have to manifest a lot of actual experiencing the sensations of things happening. That's the biggest part to alchemical meditation. And then there's the practical techniques that move fluids or move air or trap things or push things. And we see a lot of this kind of thing in Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga is an alchemical process of using pranayama. And pranayama is breath work, using oxygen, using breath, and using other forms of old Vedic techniques that the yogi would use to bring about different physiological changes in the body, which would cause different emotional states and different mental states. So we work with the body, and that moves up into the emotions and moves up into the mental spheres. So we have to understand the old axiom, as above as below. All things come down and go up. So this gives us the availability to experience higher states. It also gives us the ability to experience lower states. So through Kriya Yoga, we can use pranayama and some other yogic techniques to force the body to have a physiological action, which will start to create the different emotional experiences and the mental experiences. Now, a lot of the times when we meditate, we can't actually clear our minds. It takes a lot of really good practice and a lot of silent meditation, and a lot of pushing away thoughts. A lot of people are really good at meditating and going to a secret waterfall and meeting all kinds of beings. But most people are not really good at actually making all thought cease till there's no thought whatsoever. There's no mind. There's no rambling of their mind. There's no thinking about tomorrow or Aunt Susie's birthday or Uncle Bob's toothache. We're not thinking about anything. There's at once nothing. There's no anything there. There's no thoughts. There's no sensations. There's no feelings. There's nothing. Nothing is there. And so a lot of people aren't really good at this. And that's because it's extremely hard. And so a lot of people don't choose alchemical process. They don't choose the really harder instructional meditations, these active meditations, because it's very hard to do. And it's really easy to get really comfortable and imagine your fairy friends that you talk to at the waterfall. Because imagination is needed for both scenarios. You need to be able to have an imagination to visualize light moving through the channels and purifying and pushing black out of your fingertips. You need an imagination to start to stir up those visuals. But at the same time, too much of that is a hindrance, because then you're just caught in the phenomenal world of imagination and not really getting into the activities that need to take place. So there's all kinds of meditations, as I mentioned, transcendental, guided meditations, but there's also the different forms of meditation, like active meditation. Active meditation is actually doing something, and then there's passive meditation, doing nothing. And as I stated, it's hard to do absolutely nothing, to inevitably shut the thought off, to shut off feelings off, and to completely disconnect from the physical body. And some people experience this, and a lot of people experience all of these things, little glimpses of attainments, of a really hardcore alchemical meditation practitioner would experience. There's always little glimpses of these things, regardless of what kind of meditation you do. Inevitably, one day you come to a point where you come back and you realize you don't know how long it's been. It's been 3 hours and you didn't feel your body for the whole time. But that's not a state that you are active in all the time. It's just a happenstance. It just happened because you got that relaxed and it was the right conditions. Whereas the alchemical practitioner, the yogi, the true sense of the yogi, can actually achieve those states every time with the same exact practice. And actually, after a while, that state becomes so refined that it pushes them into the next state, just through the same practice. So alchemical meditation is a way to actually bring about the change very scientifically, to actually evolve the soul very scientifically, very ABC style of meditation. So it's not really about relaxation as much as it's a part of an activity. Now, obviously, you need relaxation. Relaxation is built within the meditation at some point, either before or after, or both. But there is a participation needed. An activity needs to be engaged in. So that makes it an active meditation, mostly. And then when you start to reach those stages, then you move into the relaxation point. So there's different paths. There's a lot of these meditations, these alchemical meditations, are saturation meditations that you do the same practice for years and years and years, and over time it just saturates you more and more and more until it reaches a critical mass and it overflows out of the vessel and it makes the experience happen, or the attainment happens. Now, what do I mean by attainment? Well, if you just meditate for the sake of meditation, then you're only going to achieve meditation. If you meditate with the thought that you need to relax, then your attainment is relaxation. If you meditate with the thought to reach a higher enlightened state, then your attainment is going to be that higher enlightened state. And that is the marker that you're trying to reach. That's the goal you're trying to attain. And then there's dialectic meditation. Dialectic meditation is like, who am I? Who am I really? I'm not this body. Science proves that there's a space between every atom. There's nothing really holding me together. Why am I even a physical mass? And you meditate on that until your psyche just kind of short circuits and you experience your state there. There's many different ways to attain or to achieve a lot of attainments. But the point is that there is an activity that needs to be engaged in order to reach evolution. And that activity needs normally to be something we engage in every day or every week so that we can saturate ourselves to the point where it fills us up and it forces us into that attainment. It pushes us into that state of awareness. It brings us to that height that we're looking for. Because you can't just jump there. If you could, you'd already be there. It would be that easy. And the fact is it's not easy. It's not easy to reach any attainment. And true alchemical meditation is probably the most difficult kinds of meditations on the planet. That's why it's led to many people being enlightened. It's led to many masters having achieved paranormal feats like levitation, or never smelling even though they haven't showered in 30 years, being able to go 30 years without eating food, animals, dangerous animals just bowing down and not harming them where they would harm normal people. So lots of very beautiful and magical things happen from these alchemical meditations, but it's not easy. And people spend their whole lives doing these things, maybe sometimes not even reaching their attainments. And because of that, because that label is very clearly slapped on most alchemical practices, that this may take you 14 years or it may take you your next life. Because it's usually plastered clearly on there from whatever teacher or master you're learning these things from, normally people will shy away from that stuff. They'd rather go back to their phantasmal meditations of talking to fairies and Arcturians and Palladian aliens that are helping them balance the grids of the earth, or some other phenomenal thing that's amazing and making you so special, than actually do the thing that makes you non-special, that makes you a small, unnecessary being that's not really achieving very much. And in order to achieve, you're going to have to do this really hard thing that seems totally impossible. But if you can do it, you'll be an incredible master. You'll have feats. You'll experience phenomenon. You'll have all these attainments. You will know. Your awareness will be so vast. Yada, yada, yada. And most people don't pick that because it's hard. And Thich Nhat Hanh said that a lot of people think that a Buddhist monk or a meditator is like a hippie. It's someone that just is lazy and easygoing and just walks around asking for handouts, and the world takes care of them and they don't care because they're all about enlightenment, man. But that's not what it's about at all. It's actually the hardest path. It's harder than living a normal life working a job and having money, knowing that you can go buy food, knowing that you can just sit and indulge in a box of chocolates for hours on end and nobody's going to care. It's actually harder to become a monk. It's harder to be a yogi. It's even harder to be a yogi than it is a monk sometimes, because the yogis are extremely austere. Now, in our society, we have a lot of people that do yoga or do all kinds of different yoga, and they label themselves yoginis or yogis. And the fact is that none of them are yogis or yoginis at all, because those people, if you've ever really met a yogi or a yogini, those people are extremely austere, extremely talented in yoga. And they have incredible awarenesses because they do spend their whole life trying to attain purity, trying to attain things through alchemical meditations. And, you know, they can do all the stretches and things, but that's just to show that they have mastery over their body. The stretchy yoga that we see today, all the stretches and asanas and things like that, that's all about mastering the body. It has nothing to do with real yoga. That's just to show that you have mastered your body. That's just one level. Then the next level is mastering your mind, which is one that's extremely difficult for Westerners because our mind is incredibly materialistic, more so than other societies. So what we see and hear as yogis is nothing close to what they actually are, what they actually are in the cultures where those things come from. Because that would mean extreme austerity, no sex, no alcohol, no meat, no sleeping in, all kinds of very austere things, going 30, 40 days without sleep or without food to reach their next attainment. So, and they're all the while doing alchemical practices. So in the Western world, it's really hard for us to actually do these kind of things, to actually have real attainments through alchemical meditations. And again, that's why we often don't choose them. But for those that do choose them, things start to happen. Through the saturation of the practices, you start to procure changes in the body, which changes the aura or the emotional body, which starts to change the mind and the mental body. Now, let's talk for a minute about some of the changes that happen. Your cerebral spinal fluid is the fluid that washes through your brain and into your spine. Your spine's a hollow cavity with a gelatinous substance in it, and it washes over your brain. Now, science knows that it's a multi-layered thing, and it's a colloidal thing, which means that inside the liquid is particles, like mass of particles inside those. And through the spine and the brain sends out chemical and electrical impulses. Now, when your brain sends out like an impulse to like your arm to move or something, or let's say you've been injured. So now hormones are needed. Hormones are needed to activate different healing processes. Your brain sends out an electrical signal, and at some point it crosses what is called, I think it's called the neurojunction gap. And the electrical signal leaves the end of that receptor, and it turns into chemicals. So electrical to chemical. And then once it reaches the other side, it turns back into electrical impulse. It comes down, triggers the hormones to heal. So your body is continuously going through hormonal and electrical changes. To even just move my hands, I'm using both processes. And your spine and brain is responsible for all of that. So if your body uses electricity and chemicals to make things happen in the body, then if you can stimulate the chemicals and electrical impulses, you can actually cause changes back to the body. Now, this doesn't mean go stick your finger in a light socket. That's not going to do what I'm talking about. But through different kinds of techniques and practices, we can make the body actually do things that normally it can't do. So science has also proven that we have an electromagnetic field. It's a real thing. There's electromagnetic fields everywhere. You can't see them, but with certain things, certain kinds of technology, we can actually see them. Now, this was known about for thousands of years before we actually had the scientific capacity to see these things. But now science proves that we are living in a field. The human body is a field of electromagnetic energy. You can sense it. It's there. It's inside. It's electrical and chemical. There's magnetic and electrical qualities, which makes it both electric and magnetic. So it's electromagnetic, which means it gives off electricity, receives electricity, and it is magnetized and polarized to some event. So we have a lot of things about us that isn't normally worked with, understood, or aware of. And so understanding that the body has these fields, has these things that are around it, and they're tied in specific points to the body. Where they've just found at the Heart Math Institute several years ago is that your main field that they can detect so far is actually linked to the heart. So your emotional body is linked to the heart. Well, in many traditions, the emotional body is linked to the chi, to the dantian, a little bit below the navel. And that's where it comes from. But there's also different traditions that say that the heart is the seat of the soul. This is where the soul will come out into the universe. So we have all these different energetic components in our body. And when it comes to traditional Chinese medicine, and I'll correct that because it actually comes from Japan, but the Chinese took the teachings of the Taoists and the Japanese healers, and they made it into a comprehensive system that was publicized and made famous. And so that was what we now know as traditional Chinese medicine. But way back in the day, it was what would have been called traditional Japanese medicine. So in traditional Chinese medicine, we have all the meridians. We have these channels that run through the body that that the ancient Taoists and Japanese medical practitioners found were different pathways that could be stimulated, and they would stimulate different physiological changes in the organs and in the other systems of the body, like the nervous system and the endocrine system. And so when we're talking about alchemical meditational practices, we're talking about practices that actually utilize all those same things. They make changes to the aura, to the fields that exist around us. The electromagnetic fields are changed. Our endocrine systems, the pineal gland, the gonads, the liver, the heart, the thymus, the thyroid, all of these things are actually changed because there are hormone production areas. And so those things are changed. So now there's an electrical quality, there's a chemical quality that's being utilized to start to shift the balance of the soul. Because all these things are where we express our life force from, where we express our physiology from, where we express ourselves into the world physically, tangibly. And so we go backwards and we start to utilize a technique that changes those centers, utilizes the chemicals, utilizes the electrical signals and impulses, opens up a blockage or creates a block to create a new pathway. And all of these things start to build changes in our physiology, in our emotions, in our mind, because all of those things start to produce electrical signals and tell us, well, this is now what's happening with the body. Where before you were out of breath and you couldn't feel anything in your toes, now you can feel the whole world through your auric field. So all of these things are natural, very scientific processes. It's very easily explainable. Whereas the phantasmal meditational world of fairies, dragons, and unicorns is not. And again, not that I'm saying that there's anything wrong with those things. I'm just saying there's a distinct difference between the quality of evolution through meditation and all the other things that meditation does, or the different kinds of meditation. So when we talk about evolution of the soul, if somebody comes up to you and says, oh yeah, I'm all about evolving to the fifth dimension, I would ask them where the fifth dimension is. First of all, where is the fifth dimension? How can you show that to me? How can you explain that to me? Second of all, what meditational tool do you use to get there? And if they tell you that they picture the bright pink light from El Morea's brain coming into their heart, and that just brings them to the fifth dimension, I call bull hockey, because there's no proof. It's just somebody telling me something that they believe is true. There's no way for me to experience what they're talking about. They don't have a tangible way that they experience it. And so how am I going to experience it? And furthermore, how many other people are doing this thing? And how do I talk to these people and let them know that I want to know what they know, if they can only tell me, well, you just picture the pink ray from El Morea's third eye coming into your third eye, and then you move into the fifth dimension. What do you mean? You don't know how to do that? What do you mean you're not experiencing it? Maybe you're not supposed to be there, man. So so what I'm talking about is a lot of distinction between real life evolution, like real tangible evolution of the soul, and the other things. And there's no wrong or right. I just know that these things that I'm talking about, the alchemical movements of life, is scientific. And those things can be applied to spirituality. And spirituality can be a very experiential thing that's not an imagined fairy tale. It's an actual experience that can be had through specific techniques, through qualities, through expanding awarenesses, feelings, and inevitably reaching these states of greater consciousnesses. So alchemical meditations are something that's really not presented a lot to the world. They have been, and mostly are kept secret from teacher to student practitioner. And the reason is because these are very valuable tools, and they do cause very specific changes. And it's not for the weekend warrior. It's not for the person that maybe wants to try some evolution. It's not a recreational drug. So it's something that really you have to be an earnest seeker to be able to find someone that will give you the technique to get you there. And then hopefully that person sticks around to help you understand the things that you're experiencing and help navigate you so you can get to the attainments and the evolution that you want. I think it's very rare, personally, that you can find a book that will teach you how to evolve yourself and you will find that evolution easy. Most of the time, those books will leave things out because they're written by people that are not adepts. They have not been giving the secret teachings. They have not been giving the practices. They have not spent their life meditating. In fact, the New Age spiritual movement is a billion-dollar industry for authors. I know that because I write, and I know that because I've done the research. And so there are people that do nothing but write books for the spiritual, metaphysical, New Age niche. And they do that because they know there's money there. So they can take this and take that and put it all together, call it the new light body, and sell it to you, and you'll buy it all day long. That's because you don't have any other sources. We don't have any other thing that goes against that. I think that if you're a personal, metaphysical, journeying, spiritual experiencer, then you've probably come to the idea that you have to be a scientist. If you want to know if the pink light from El Morea's third eye is going to increase your clairvoyancy, you're going to try it in a very scientific scenario. You're going to attempt the technique that Joe gave you, and you're going to log in the experiences after each meditation. And you're going to do this for a set period of time and see if it procures any kind of phenomenon. And then you're going to look at those phenomenons, and then you're going to put them together, and you're going to take all your data, all your research, all your scientific evaluation, and at the end of it, look at it and say, did I achieve what I wanted to achieve, what I was told I could achieve from the pink ray of El Morea's third eye? And if you do not approach the spiritual world with that kind of healthy skepticism and that kind of willingness to put in the work and the willingness to do the research, the willingness to log it down, then you really are just flying by your beliefs. You not having any kind of scientific process. And for me, that distinctly separates you from the kinds of spiritual people that are out there. And there's thousands of different kinds of spiritual people. And a lot of times if you put them all in the room, they all don't look any different than the one crazy that's in the bunch, who's the homeless person talking about aliens coming down and giving us all new DNA, and we're going to achieve the third or fifth dimensional light body, and all we have to do is, drink the purple Kool-Aid. If you put all of us in a room, there's not much that makes us look any less crazier than that guy. Except for our conversation, of course. When we get down to the brass tacks of how I got where I got, or how you got where you got, or your abilities or my abilities, and we start talking and we find out that some of us have a very practical scientific mind that execute experience and data to retrieve fact, which is the whole gnosis, the whole experiential knowing. So we know that the experience is true. We've researched it. We've tried it. We've experienced it. And it's brought our knowing to the precipice of knowledge. And then there's those people that don't do any work whatsoever, and it's purely imaginary. And they're imagining themselves and pushing themselves and projecting themselves into other states and dimensions. And it's very easy to be that. And it's very hard to separate those people. There's psychology studies about false memories, where people can actually tell themselves a lie enough that they believe it, and that they will actually exude traits of that lie. And that seems to be a disease in this culture, where we delude ourselves into believing things. We delude ourselves into what we want instead of actually going and embarking on some real hard work. And so when I'm talking about enlightenment and alchemical meditations, it's easy. I could give you the meditation. You could achieve enlightenment at some point. The hard part is the fact that you're going to have to dedicate and sacrifice and adhere to this for as long as it takes you to achieve that. And you will not be able to delude yourself into believing you've gotten there. You actually have to get there. So again, it's not a place or a process that a lot of us actually go to, because it is hard work. And the teachers that teach us those things normally aren't all love and light and unicorns. They're tough people. They're looking for people that are genuine and are going to do the work and become great students, not okay ones. So we can all try an alchemical meditation. It's very easy. It's a Kriya Yoga technique, and it works very effectively over time. And so the first thing you're going to do is just sit and just relax for a moment. Take a couple deep breaths and just kind of let the body gear down, let the mind gear down. Let the breath relax. And then begin right above your head, about a fist length above the top of your head. You're just going to start placing your attention right about there. And so you're going to breathe and imagine that there's a small ball about the size of two fists just sitting there. And as you breathe, you're going to start to notice the sensation of numbness or tingliness on the top back of the head. You'll start to become aware of a sensation. It's the radiation that small ball is giving off above the top of the head. It's radiating and it's raining down and touching the top of your head. And if it's really powerful and you can feel it, it'll radiate right down and make the frontal lobe of your brain nice and numb. It'll make the whole head numb. And so you're just going to breathe and sense this large softball, golden, glowing ball at the top of your head. And just start to feel the sensation that it's giving you. Could be warm, could be cold. Just allow the sensation to happen at the top of the head. There will be a sensation. And then from here, you're going to close your eyes. You're still feeling the sensation at the top of your head, sensing the ball of golden light above the top of your head. And you're going to begin to slowly breathe in, and the golden ball is going to pour a golden light down into the top of your head. You're slowly going to become aware of the sensation as it fills the top of your head, fills the brain, moves behind the eyes and into the nasal cavity, fills the cheeks and the jaw. The key here is to really feel the sensations along with the visualization. And make your breaths nice and relaxed. And as you breathe in, the light and energy and sensation moves through the body. And as you exhale, it stops wherever it got to last. And you're just going to keep breathing that in all the way down through the throat. Feel it go into the larynx, into the windpipes, to the tops of the lungs, all the way into the shoulders. Feel it in every cell. Moves all the way down to the heart. Feeling the sensations moving all the way through the body, down to the liver, stomach, down to the navel, all the way down to the sexual organs, into the knees, and finally into the feet. So as you breathe in, this energy is going to come down and fill the whole body. And as you exhale, it's going to go up the front of the body. And all the way back up into the golden orb again. Inhaling towards the back of the head, all the way through the body. Exhaling, coming up the front of the body. Back in to the golden orb. And you're just going to do that. Just get that rotation going. Nice and smoothly. rotating this energy, feeling it throughout the whole body. And after doing this for some time, maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour, you'll start to feel really, really ecstatic. And then just sit and ground, because these kind of alchemical meditations will make you very ungrounded. You might feel a little off balance, feel euphoric. You might feel really happy for hours, and then all of a sudden you just come down, you just crash, and just be like, I don't know what happened. I felt really good, but now I just feel tired. These are all signs and signals that things are happening. And an attainment would be when you begin to wake up every day feeling joyful with no issues, and every time you meditate, it just makes that even more powerful, and you stop coming off from that. That would be an attainment. That means you've reached a precipice, you've reached a plateau where that energy has worked enough that it is actually holding an energetic stasis, holding a stasis in the soul. The soul has reached a level of stasis. And these things are very fragile, because all it takes is doing one thing, or doing several bad things like diet or engaging in horrible activity, and it knocks you out of these things, and you have to start all over again. Hence the difficulty of being an alchemical meditation experiencer for the practice of evolution. Evolution is extremely difficult. If anyone tells you anything different, they're lying. Because if evolution were easy, and every human being, all they had to do was remember, then it would be very easy to get to. But it's not, and it's purposely not easy to do. It's purposely not easy to attain. It's hard work for a reason. This separates the enlightened, the adept, the masters from those that are not. It separates those that know from those that are ignorant. So try this meditation, work with it. It should present some very enlightened qualities and sensations. You can do this one for the rest of your life if you like, and it will inevitably lead you to very high states of consciousness. I hope that everyone enjoyed this. I hope that it was educational. And if you're seeking any kind of teachings, more alchemical practices or knowledge in these fields, and you want to get a hold of me, you can message me on Facebook. And if you want to donate because you found this information valuable and you like the work that I'm doing and want to continue to support me in doing so, you can always send a donation to michaelphoenixhart@yahoo.com through PayPal. Everything is appreciated to keep educating and keep writing. I will have books out this year. I'm doing a lot of workshops and a lot of teachings. Right now I'm teaching a lot of shamanism, teaching workshops, and doing a lot of training for mediums and other things that are happening. So if you like what I'm doing, follow me on Facebook, follow me on YouTube, go to my website, check out the services, the trinkets, and all the other things that I offer there. I have empowerments, I have readings. Soon I will have some at-home study courses that you can start to do. And if you're looking for more teachings on these vast subjects that I present to you in the public, don't hesitate to contact me. I hope you all enjoyed this broadcast, and thank you for allowing me into your home and into your life for a moment, for listening to the things that I have to share with an open mind. And thank you again. Enjoy this blue moon. This full moon is a blue moon, so charge all your crystals, charge yourself, breathe in the moonlight, and I hope you have a beautiful and peaceful filled evening. And may the gods and the divinities bless you on your spiritual journey.